Mark Allen, 2007. Part 2 and Part 3. Part 2 The individual long turn. Part 3 Two-way discussion. Topic 11 to 20.
Topic 11. A library. Cue card. Describe a library that you often go to. You should say what library it is, where it is, what the library looks like, what you do there, and explain why you like this library.
I like to go to a library called the People's Library near my home. It is located on First Avenue near Main Street in a very new building that has some beautiful urban sculptures standing on the grounds around it. The library has many floors and each floor has different sections. The first time I went there, I needed a lot of help to find books, but now I feel like it is my second home. When I go to the library, I feel like I am leaving a lot of my worries and cares behind, even if I have to go there to research or study. I think that is because I know I can always find a quiet, private place to read or do my work. And if I want to travel to a different place or a different time, I can do that at the library by finding a book or computer that will take me into another world. I'm particularly interested in this library because it has a lot to offer. Besides having a good stock of books, it also provides office equipment, such as a good copy machine, a bookbinder, many computers and printers, and much more. And it has very good service too. If you need a book in another library, it will obtain that book for you by either shipping it from the other library or purchasing the book.
Part 3. Libraries. 1. What kind of people go to libraries most often?
I think people of all ages use the library. However, I think students use the libraries more often than older people. I often see young children in the library, but I think university students use the library the most frequently. In my opinion, the older generation use libraries the least. Some are too busy, and others have no interest in books.
2. Why do you think a library is a good place for reading?
I think that the atmosphere in the library is conducive to reading because, number one, it is one of the quietest places you can go. Also, if you start reading something and you find you are not interested in it, it is one of the best places to find another book. Nowadays, many people read from computers. It is very convenient, therefore, to be able to access materials on the internet at the library.
3. Even though it might cost a lot to maintain a library, do you think the government should open more public libraries?
On the one hand, I think that it is very worthwhile to have plenty of libraries. On the other hand, with the way technology is improving practically each day, it may be wiser to invest in making computers more accessible to more people. It is possible to go to an internet cafe and go online, but much of this time is spent on worthless computer games and watching movies. Establishing computer libraries and teaching people how to use them beneficially might be a good idea.
4. Do you think public libraries should be free of charge?
It would be nice if libraries were free, but usually you have to pay a fee or put down some kind of deposit. I don't think this is too unreasonable, as people often do not appreciate things they get totally for free. If people know they can get their deposits back if they do not damage any books, then it makes them more careful. Of course, the government should subsidize libraries so that people do not have to pay exorbitant costs.
5. How do you think libraries will change in the future?
I can picture a future where computer technology will enable us to have easy access to all the resources a library provides. People may not even have to read. They could just listen to texts. It may sound like fantasy, but with all the progress in technology, I think it is very possible.
Improvement. 6. What kind of skills do you think library staff should have?
I think library staff should always be very well informed as to where things are located in the library. This will enable them to help people to save time in finding what they need, which is a very big help in our busy times. I think they should also be very courteous, as people who are using the library can often be under a lot of pressure and often need a lot of help. Library staff should also be efficient and have organisational skills. They may have to take care of a lot of details, and it would make things very difficult for those using the library if items were lost or difficult to find. Last but not least, library staff should be patient. They may be faced with a myriad of requests each day, and those using the library will be unhappy if the staff are frustrated, impolite, or upset.
7. What can be done to make libraries more attractive?
I am interested in interior decorating, and one thing I would recommend for libraries is to incorporate more neutral colours into the decor. I believe that nowadays libraries are decorated to use maximum space and reflect maximum light. Browns and other muted colours can create a warm atmosphere. Comfortable and attractive seats can also make the environment more inviting. Also, I am in favour of having works of art in libraries. Not necessarily originals, but good quality copies of famous works are attractive as well as educational.
8. How has the Internet affected the popularity of libraries?
Certainly the Internet provides easy access to sources of information, although their validity should be suspect. However, there is nothing on the Internet that replaces picking up an actual book and reading it. Reading a book is a tactile experience. Books can be carried everywhere and read at any time. Although I use the Internet for a number of things, I have in my personal library about 300 reference books, and I find things in them that I do not find on the Internet. I augment this library with books from the public library.
Topic 12. A film. Cue card. Describe a film that you have recently seen. You should say what the film was, when and where you saw it, what the film was about, and explain how you felt about this film.
A film that I saw recently was called The Passion of the Christ. I was in my hometown of Chongqing when I saw it when it first came out a few years ago. The film was about the last 24 hours of Jesus' life on earth. It showed when he was in the garden before he was captured and brought before a trial all the way up to when he was crucified and rose up again from out of the grave. It was actually quite moving because the director, Mel Gibson, actually put his own money into making the picture, so he was able to just do it the way that he wanted it done. This movie caused quite an uproar when it was released, as some people really loved it and others hated it. It was in the news for a long time with a lot of debating going on over it. It ended up making quite a bit of money for Mel Gibson. Everything about it was very beautiful, from the cinematography to the actual scenery. The acting was top-notch. I think the main actor deserved an Academy Award, but anyway, I enjoyed it very much. One of the hardest scenes for me to watch in the movie was where Jesus gets whipped before he is crucified. It was so realistic, I had to hide my eyes.
Part 3. Films. 1. What kinds of films are most popular in China?
Well, Hollywood blockbusters are very popular here. Films like Titanic and Saving Private Ryan. Also, Hong Kong films are very popular because the stars are well known here. Kung Fu films are popular because this art form originated here. Of course, love stories are very popular as well as Chinese historical films.
2. Do old people and young people like to watch the same kinds of films? Compare the differences.
Well, I think that old people like to watch stories about their country since they were so involved in this time period. They also like to watch variety shows that show the natives singing and dancing from different parts of China. Young people, on the other hand, go for the foreign films, as I already mentioned. There are some films that both young and old like to watch, such as Chinese historical movies.
3. What do you think people can learn from watching films? Or should films be considered as entertainment only?
Oh, I think that people can learn so much from films. You know, there is an old saying that goes, "A wise man learns from his mistakes, but a wiser learns from the mistakes of others." Just by watching a movie and seeing what a character does in certain circumstances can help you to know what to either do or not do. You can feel what the characters feel if the actors are really good. You can see sights that you might not be able to see if it were not for movies, so definitely you can learn from watching films.
4. To what extent do you think films reflect real life?
Well, that is a big argument that has been around for a long time. Does art imitate life, or does life imitate art? I believe that each reflects on the other. Sometimes films observe life and comment on it, and sometimes life observes film and imitates it. Film is a powerful medium and brings many parts of life to the public for observation.
5. Do you think that film stars deserve the large incomes that some of them receive?
Absolutely not. I think film actors' salaries have just gotten way out of hand. I know that some of them are very good actors and do the job that they have to do well, but when I think of all that money and what else could be done with it, I just can't seem to justify it. When you pay people this much money, it absolutely makes them larger than life, and reality can become a little blurred.
Censorship. 6. What do you think about censorship?
I believe in it. I think that some of the stuff that is available to the public is just pure garbage. Not censoring would be like allowing garbage to be strewn around your living room. I believe in freedom of speech and having the right to say what you think, but I believe that also goes along with a sense of responsibility of who would be around to hear it. Some things are just not fit for all audiences. I think that maybe censorship can go too far, but if you have a good balance in what is censored, it is not such a bad thing.
7. Should films be classified before release?
Of course, this goes along with my previous answer, although really with today's films, some of them could be classified as junk 1 and garbage 2. I hope that you don't think that I am being too negative on this subject, but realistically speaking, expanding these ratings or classifications would not be a bad idea. I think that the rating system is too simplistic, and many more guidelines and ways to classify movies are long overdue. Topic 13. An outdoor activity. Cue card. Describe an outdoor activity that you like doing. You should say what this activity is, when you do it, where you do it, and explain why you like it.
I really enjoy running. Not the fast sprinting kind of run, but rather the more drawn-out jogging kind of run. I usually like to run when the weather is warm, but not too hot, because if it's too hot, then I'll be sweating like a camel, and will be so thirsty and red from the heat that I can't function for about a half hour after that. Somewhere between 21 and 28 degrees Celsius is a good temperature for running. I extremely dislike running on a track or in wide open spaces, because it makes me feel like I'm not getting anywhere. I think that the best place to run is on a smaller, not so busy street in a nice residential area. But if there isn't a place like that to run near my house, I'll run anywhere, even on a track. One reason that I enjoy running is it's faster than walking and cheaper than taking buses or taxis. Also, running is good for your health. The more you run, the stronger your legs, back and lungs get. I also like the rush that you get when you push yourself farther than you've ever gone before, where you feel like collapsing and keep on running until you don't even feel your legs anymore, and it's just mechanical.
Part 3. Outdoor activities. 1. Would you say people spend more time outdoors today than they did, say, 20 years ago?
I don't really think so. Now, with so many modern conveniences, there's less need to work outdoors. There are so many offices and indoor jobs now that it's almost considered low class to do manual labor or work outside. Most middle-class working people do not get sufficient amounts of exercise and, as a result, are weak and more prone to sickness.
2. Are there any outdoor activities that many people used to do but which most people don't do now?
One of the main ones that I can think of is walking. People still walk, but not in the same proportion that they used to years ago. Walking used to be the main source of travel, unless you could afford a horse, donkey or mule. But now with cars, buses and the internet, people do a lot less walking to get to work, the store, or wherever they need to go.
3. What are the most popular outdoor activities in China?
Many Chinese enjoy playing badminton, riding bicycles, performing Tai Chi and walking. Some sports that have been adopted from other cultures are also popular, such as basketball, tennis and track sports. One outdoor activity that most Chinese, both old and young, like is table tennis. It is a national sport here in China, so it's not really surprising that so many people enjoy playing it.
4. Do old and young people like doing the same kinds of activities outdoors?
It really depends on the people playing the sports, because some old people are very fit and can keep up with the younger ones quite well. But for the most part, old people generally don't exert themselves physically as much as the younger ones do. They'd much rather take a walk or play badminton than climb a mountain or play a full-court game of basketball.
Working outdoors. 5. What do you think are some of the differences between working outdoors compared to, say, working in an office?
If you're always indoors, then you'll get weak and sick easier, whereas if you work outside, then you're getting fresh air and sunshine, which are two things that everyone needs to stay healthy. If you're working outdoors, then you'll probably be more physically fit and a whole lot stronger than if you're sitting at your desk all day. Of course, if you don't have a balanced life, then you're bound to have complications. And if you don't spend at least a few hours on your computer every day, you might not be able to sleep at night.
6. Do people in China prefer to work indoors or outdoors?
Most Chinese prefer working inside over working outside. They've had to work outdoors for so many years that it's a relief to work inside. I think that a common mentality is that if you work outdoors, you're low class and can't do anything else. This might be true in some cases, but I'm not sure that it's true with everyone.
7. If you had to choose an outdoors job, what would you choose to do?
I would probably choose a job where you have to exert yourself physically. Maybe I'd work on a farm or some job like that, although I'd like to learn carpentry. Oh, I know. I'd work at a zoo cleaning the monkey cages, and when I'd have time off, I'd go to the elephant cage and feed them peanuts.
Outdoor environment. 8. How do you think climate and the environment affect what activities people do outdoors?
If it's really cold, then you can't do some of the things that you can when it's really hot. If you try to play basketball, the ball won't bounce so well because the cold makes it flat. That's why they have indoor basketball courts. They keep it warm so that the ball can bounce and the teams can play without freezing. In the cold climates, you can skate, ski, and snowboard. And in hot climates, you can surf, swim, and play football or basketball.
9. Do you think the air quality in your hometown has improved or worsened in recent years?
Improvement as far as air pollution is concerned is an impossibility, if the air has steadily gotten worse at an alarming rate. Over the past few years, more people have gotten cars, more factories have been constructed, and the air has just gotten worse. The sad thing is that it's slowly killing us all, and in a matter of years we'll all have bronchitis or maybe tuberculosis. Not a very pleasant thought if you ask me.
10. Do you think it will be easy for the government to solve environmental problems?
It won't just be hard, it'll be almost impossible. As far as air pollution, the government is fighting a losing battle. Every time they pass new regulations or set the standards higher, something nasty happens. Like when the Russians were conducting the safety tests at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, it blew up in their faces. But they should definitely try to do their best to solve these problems.
11. How do you think the environment in your hometown should be changed?
If we had more trees and plants around the city, then the air would be a lot fresher. There needs to be some kind of quality control on vehicles that are going around the city. Some of those farm tractors are blowing out black smoke that suffocates anybody who is nearby. The sad thing is that people in my hometown are so accustomed to the environment being bad that they don't really care about changing it. They just want to do what's easiest, even if it means ruining their health and slowly killing themselves.
Topic 14. Favorite time of the year. Cue card. Describe your favorite season or time of the year. You should say when this time is, what the weather is like at this time, what you usually do at this time, and explain why it is your favorite time of the year. I think my favorite time of the year is spring. The main reason I like it is because it's not too cold and not too hot. In some places I've lived, such as Hangzhou and Shanghai, it rains most of the sprint. But I was mainly thinking of when I lived in Kunming. It's so beautiful all spring. The sky is blue and the weather is nice and warm. The flowers start to bloom and the leaves on the trees turn green. Since Kunming has many parks, my family and I would often go for picnics in the parks where we would play badminton, cat, rest, and look at all the plants and flowers. Our favorite park was the Kunming Botanical Garden. It had so many different kinds of plants, trees, flowers, ferns, you name it. Another thing I like to do during springtime is to get up early and climb mountains. There was one mountain near our house called Changchongshan. It wasn't so high but there were no steps, only a few rough trails. Another thing I like about spring is that's when all the animals are born. That's when you can see all of the little baby squirrels, dogs, cats, snakes and spiders. The air always seems fresher in the spring. The sky is bluer, the grass greener, and the people friendlier, or at least I think so. Part 3. Seasons. 1. How do the different seasons affect the lifestyles of Chinese people? In places like Guangzhou, Shenzhen, or Xiamen where it's always hot, there aren't many extreme weather changes to worry about. But in wet places in China such as Beijing, Shanghai, Tibet, or Harbin, the weather changes so drastically from summer to winter that it affects lifestyles. During the winter the weather may go below 10, and in the summer it may get as hot as 400 Celsius. That means you have to have different kinds of clothes for each season. Also, in the winter you might need heating, and in the summer you'll most likely have to use a fan or an air conditioner. One friend of mine uses both. 2. How do different seasons affect the way people feel? One of the things that weather affects is the kind of food you eat. I don't know about other people, but when it's really hot I don't usually feel like eating a lot, just some fruit or quick and easy food, like sandwiches, cold noodles, or McDonald's, whereas in the winter I usually feel like eating lots of filling hot food, such as soups, rice, noodles, and other things like that. Also when it's hot I just feel like sleeping, but in the winter I'm naturally colder, so I have to move around to keep warm. Weather climate. 3. How does the climate of a place affect the kind of buildings that are built there? Well, if the climate is hot then the builders will construct the buildings to stay as cool as possible. But if you're in a cold climate then you might find double insulation on the windows, or the houses will be built to retain heat as much as possible. It's quite common to second a house with a bunch of open porches and verandas in a hot climate, and probably every room will have a hole for an air conditioning vent, but colder climates will most likely have central heating. 4. Do you think fighting global climate change is a governmental responsibility or the responsibility of individuals? As the saying goes, many hands make light work. If the governments and individuals work together on the climate problems, there will be many changes and more progress will be made. Of course more responsibility should fall on the shoulders of the government because they have the means to do more than the average citizen. But that shouldn't stop ordinary people from doing their part. Vacations/holidays tourism. 5. What are the major public holidays and festivals in China? There is of course Spring Festival, the Lantern Festival, and the Dragon Boat Festival. There's Grave Sweeping Day, Labor Day, the Moon Festival, and National Day holiday. I think that's about it. 6. What do people in China do when they have holidays? Most of the time they will party with their friends, but it really depends on the holiday. Take Grave Sweeping Day for instance. Chinese usually burn fake money, clean graves, and place flowers on them. Or at the Dragon Boat Festival they either watch the races or participate in one. But at Spring Festival everyone will party and eat and drink all night. 7. Why do Chinese people like the Spring Festival? The Spring Festival is a time for family, a time for everyone to get together and party, eat, give presents and enjoy each other's company. It's in a sense like Christmas, at least as far as the partying and gift-giving is concerned. It's the celebration of a new year, giving thanks for the last one and hoping and wishing that the next year will be prosperous. Also, it's a time off from school and work to relax without having to worry about meeting a deadline. 8. How can people benefit from visiting new places? The more extensive and comprehensive your knowledge of other peoples and cultures is, the easier it'll be for you to relate to them. You'll have more in common with them and will better understand them. If you never leave your home, your understanding of other people will be very minimal. You'll most likely be narrow-minded and bigoted. Although this isn't always the case, most of them are this way. 9. When many people visit a particular place, what effects can that have on this place? An American friend of mine once told me that about 150 years ago some people found gold in California and people came by the thousands to look for it in the water. Because there were so many people and they all needed food, shelter, and supplies, some of the more industrious pioneers started building hotels, restaurants, and stores. Now, more than 100 years later, those towns are some of the biggest and the most thriving cities on the West Coast. What I'm trying to say here is that if there are enough people they can greatly change a place either for better or for worse.
Topic 15. A walk. Cue card. Describe a walk you take regularly. You should say where and when you walk, who you walk with, what you see on this walk, and explain why you walk.
I remember when I was in Nanjing last year. There was one walk I took extremely often. The walk was from my apartment to my work, about 2.5 kilometers away, I did it every Sunday, there in the early morning and back in the early afternoon. It was the best walk ever. In the mornings, since it was a Sunday, the streets were empty, so it was a really peaceful time. In the summer, I would get to see the sunrise over the city hall, and in the winter, I got to walk in my favorite kind of weather, cold pre-dawn darkness. Every time I would wear my iPod and listen to music that fit the mood of the walk and weather. Then in the afternoon, since Nanjing is such a big tourist draw, I would walk by many happy people on vacation, seeing the sights in town. It made me really pleased to walk by all these people, because they were always really excited to be in Nanjing, and many had their small kids who were always laughing and playing. It was really great to see people enjoying life.
Part 3. Walking and Health. 1. Do many people in China go for walks?
Yeah, lots of Chinese people go for walks. Anytime I walk by a park late at night, I always see people taking a stroll and looking pretty content. I think they do it for the same reason people worldwide who live in big cities walk. It feels good to get outside when they have been stuck inside all day. Also, walking in parks gives people a taste of nature in a concrete world.
2. How do you think walking is beneficial to health?
Walking does lots of things for your health. First, and perhaps most obvious, is the physical benefits. Walking is exercise, which is important for everyone. Just as important as the good walking does for your mind. For me at least, when I can walk somewhere, it gives me a good opportunity to think about things and not feel stuck inside. I get to feel the sun and the fresh air.
3. Do you think that playing sports is better for your health than walking?
Walking and playing sports are both good for your body. They both improve your physical health, though sport does a better job at that. When playing sports, you are more active and your heart rate increases, so your body has to work harder, which makes the exercise more beneficial. But walking does a lot of good for your mental health. It provides a great escape from the working world and gives the mind a good opportunity to just wander. So if measuring just physical health, sports are better for your body. But if you look at mental as well, they are equally good for your health.
Walk and leisure. 4. Do you think people in the past walked more than people today, or less?
I think that yes, people in the past did more walking. People today have many more distractions that occupy time that was once spent walking. They go on the internet, or watch TV, or play video games. In the past, there was less to do, so people walked a lot more. Whether it was walking somewhere or walking just to walk, I think they did it a lot more.
5. What is the relationship between standard of living and the amount of walking people do?
I think that it is not really the standard of living that affects how much people walk. As long as you are talking about walking for pleasure, I think the main variable is how people value their time. For instance, rich, busy people and poor people that have to work really hard to scrape by probably don't have that much time to walk. But people that value life more than money probably walk more often because they want to enjoy themselves every once in a while. If you're talking about all kinds of walking, though, rich people walk less, obviously because they can afford other modes of transportation.
6. How do you think the government could encourage people to walk more?
In my opinion, the best way to get people to walk more would be to build more places where people would enjoy walking. Parks or nice tree-lined streets would be a good way to start. People are much more likely to walk in places that are nice as opposed to places that feel grimy. Other than that, I think most Chinese cities are pretty walker-friendly. Lots and lots of people walk, and that is a really good thing.
7. Can you think of any examples where people walk a lot while doing their jobs?
Well, obviously, many postal workers must walk their routes in order to deliver the mail. As far as other jobs where people walk a lot, though, I can't think of many. Different kinds of delivery men and waiters and waitresses are the two best examples of these kinds of jobs. Other than that, I don't think companies need employees to walk. It's more efficient for them to either stay in one place or to get around by other modes of transportation. Topic 16. Sporting events. Cue card. Describe a sporting event that you enjoyed watching. You should say what the event was, where you watched it, who watched this event with you, and explain why you enjoyed watching this event.
A few years ago, my father took me to a basketball game that was being played at a university. The team were the Shanghai Sharks and another university team. I can't remember what the team's name was, but they were all dressed in purple and looked quite funny. The game was quite short and only had 2 halves, instead of 4 quarters. I can't remember who won, but it was obvious that the Sharks were playing very soft on the other team. At half-time, some of the Shark team members started throwing signed jerseys into the crowd. I think there were about 10 in all. I really wanted one, but we were so far back that they never reached us. A friend of mine got one, though, and I got to try it on. The atmosphere in the stadium was so exciting. Everyone was shouting, whistling, cheering, and just making noise. I was cheering for the Sharks, and my dad was whistling so loudly that people started looking at us. I was kind of embarrassed, but he didn't care. After the game, we stopped at a snack shop and got some drinks and a snack. I don't think I'll ever forget that game.
Part 3. Sports in general. 1. What are the benefits of sport or exercise?
Exercise keeps you healthy. It's been proven that people who exercise more get sick less. When you exercise, it helps build your strength to fight sickness. I have a friend who has a bad back, and if he doesn't run, play basketball or exercise in some way, then his back will go out, and he'll have to stay in bed until it is better.
2. What kinds of sports facilities exist in your community?
I live near a university, and my friends and I often go there to exercise. It has football fields, tracks, badminton, volleyball and tennis courts, and other kinds of exercise equipment. There is also a weight room and taekwondo lessons. So I think that my community has quite a good assortment of sports facilities available.
3. Do men and women play the same kind of sports?
It really depends on the person, because I know some girls who are a lot more athletic than most guys are, but for the most part, girls generally don't play most of the rougher, aggressive sports. An American friend of mine told me that many of the men there like to play American football, and even though some girls will join the game, most of them will just sit on the side and watch or do something else.
4. How do you think the government could encourage more people to exercise and participate in sport?
Advertisements are some of the biggest ways people are influenced either for or against something. If the government would air some very catchy, appealing ads on TV, or maybe even hold a public competition where the winners got a monetary prize, that would work, for me at least. I can't really think of anything else that would work, but that would be their best shot, because that's what most people will respond to.
5. Do you think children should be encouraged from a young age to participate in competitive sports or team sports?
I don't really think that it's good if children are taught at a young age to be competitive. If you can teach the child how to play competitive sports without stressing that winning is the only way that you can have fun, then I guess it's okay. But personally, I think that's a bit unrealistic, because everyone wants to win, and if kids don't win, their natural reaction is to cry or get mad. This doesn't really help them in life. When they grow up, they'll find that you don't always win the first time around. You just have to keep trying and keep going on with your life.
Live sports events. 6. Do you prefer to watch sports events on TV at home or to watch them live? Why?
I prefer watching sports on TV because sometimes you're watching a game that looks like it'll be loads of fun, but it turns out to be super boring, where your team gets creamed and you feel like crying. If you are at the stadium watching the game, there's nothing you can do but cry. But if you are at home, you can just change the channel to something fun. Watching sports at home is also more economical. You can be watching 3 or 4 games for just a few mao an hour.
7. What are the advantages and disadvantages of going to see a live sports event, such as a football match, compared to watching the event at home on TV?
Like I said before, if you go to a sports event, you have to stay and watch the whole thing, whereas if you stay at home, you can change the channel or turn off the TV. Also, you can see the game close up, whereas if you're in the stadium, then you'll see a faraway view of the game. One advantage of going to a sports event is that you can experience the excitement of the game. The game is so much more alive and real than if you were just watching it. You feel like if you yell louder, then your team might actually have a greater chance of winning. Also, if someone decides to streak at half-time, then you won't have to worry about the sports channel switching to the anchors who talk about the game.
8. Does the ticket price to live sporting events affect decisions to attend?
Yes, I think the price is an extremely big deciding factor. Take the World Masters Cup in Shanghai, for instance. If the admission fee was only 100 RMB, more than half of Shanghainese couldn't have attended the game.
9. What about the 2008 Olympic Games in Beijing? What do you think would be a reasonable price for admission tickets?
I'm not really sure. I haven't thought about it that much, but I'd prefer if they were free, so then maybe I'd be able to go. My best guess is that they will probably go for at least a few hundred yuan a ticket. People from all over the world in China will be coming to Beijing, and they will have money, so I don't think price will be a huge problem. Topic 17. Foreign cultures. Cue card. Describe a foreign culture that you are interested in. You should say what this culture is, how you learned about this culture, what you know about this culture, and explain why you feel this culture is interesting.
I have spent most of my time learning Chinese and Chinese culture, but I did have an interesting experience about 1.5 years ago that inspired me to learn about Costa Rican culture. One of my friends spent a semester abroad in Costa Rica in early 2005, and I spent 2 weeks at the beginning of the summer visiting him there. Prior to visiting, I knew almost nothing about the culture, but staying there, even for such a short time, really opened my eyes. Costa Rican culture is extremely different from either American or Chinese culture. 2 of the phrases most often used in Costa Rica are a good illustration of their culture: pura vida and tranquilo. Pura vida translates as pure life, and tranquilo means calm. Both are used in situations where the level of stress is rising. When Costa Ricans say this phrase, they are telling themselves or others, "Don't worry, chill out." It's an extremely laid-back, relaxed culture. Their main goal in life is to be happy. Work days tend to be shorter, and since the country is so small and borders both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans, it is really easy to go to the beach, so many do just that. When I was there, it was routine to see people getting up around 6 a.m., go to the beach and surf for 2 or 3 hours, work from 10 to 4, go home and eat, then go back to the beach. It was great to see a culture with such a different outlook on life.
Part 3. Learning about other cultures. 1. Do you think it's important to know about other cultures?
I do think it's extremely important to learn about other cultures. Not only can you find out interesting things, but it makes it easier to interact with those people if you ever come in contact with them. Also, it makes it a lot easier to do business with those cultures. It's important to be educated about the world and not just shut yourself into your own country.
2. How can we benefit from learning about other cultures?
Several ways that people can benefit from other cultures are in business, personal relationships, and just in self-improvement. In business, it is necessary to know a little bit about whatever culture you plan to work with. For instance, I think in Muslim cultures, shaking hands with your left hand is considered extremely rude. If you didn't know that, it could hurt your chances of doing business. Also, it's important just to improve yourself by learning as much as you can, and culture is a good subject.
3. What do you think is the best way to learn about another culture?
Obviously, the best way to learn about a culture is to go there and experience it. If you can get a feel for the culture firsthand, it will be a lot easier to pick things up. But I also believe that you can learn a ton about other cultures just by reading books about them. Reading about people's experiences in foreign lands is the next best thing to being there.
4. Do you think that learning foreign languages can help us understand foreign cultures?
I'm not sure that just learning the language is a good way to learn about a culture, but most places where you would learn a language would help you learn about the culture, so indirectly, yes. The language alone isn't great for understanding culture. For instance, German is a really harsh language, but Germans aren't harsh people. You really need to study more than the language if you want to get to know a culture.
5. Do you think it's better to go overseas to study a foreign language or to study it in your home country?
I think it is better to study a language in its native country. When you do that, you are engulfed in the language and forced to encounter it outside of the classroom. Otherwise, your only exposure to the language is when you're studying or in the classroom. I know firsthand that when learning a foreign language in your home country, it is easy to lose what you have learned.
Globalization. 6. What is your understanding of the term globalization?
Globalization, in my mind, is the idea that the world is becoming smaller, so societies can interact and exchange culture more easily and more efficiently. Unfortunately, because some countries are richer and have more influence than others, certain cultures get spread around more than others. On the whole, however, globalization is a good thing because it is not only culture that gets spread, but things like information and medicine that can help people.
7. Do you think globalization is a good thing?
Yes, globalization has its problems, but for the most part, it is good for most people involved. Some people have different opinions because they are really concerned with the loss of culture, but for me, the benefits outweigh the drawbacks. People have access to more information, so diseases can be better treated, food can be made more efficiently, and goods that make people's lives easier are now available.
8. Do you think it's easier to learn about other cultures today than it was before?
Yes, of course it is. All you have to do is to look at art from long ago about foreign cultures, and you can see the lack of knowledge people had. Today, with the internet and the number of books available, it is almost impossible to be ignorant. It is so easy to learn about anything you want.
Topic 18. Clothing and fashion. Cue card. Describe an item of clothing that you recently bought. You should say what it is, when and where you bought it, what it looks like, and explain why you bought it.
The last item of clothing that I bought was a pair of boots. I bought them when I went to the silk market on my day off. They are black, tall, and soft. They also look very smart. This pair caught my eye because they were simple and matched my clothes and accessories. I chose them because boots can be worn on many different occasions and still be appropriate. Also, in the winter it's very cold here in Beijing, and it's good to have some warm shoes to wear when you go out. It is popular to wear shoes that have pointy or tight toes, but to me this style looks silly and is very uncomfortable. My boots give my feet plenty of room to be comfortable without looking clumsy and bulky. I'm a little bit short, so I like these boots because they have a high enough heel to make me look average without being awkward or difficult to walk in. Now, of course, one of the most important things for me besides the style is the price, and that is what attracted me to these boots. My friends all tell me that if I went to Europe or America, my boots would have cost me an arm and a leg, no pun intended. Here in China, my boots are very reasonably priced. I guess that would be the final reason why I bought them.
Part 3. Buying clothes. 1. What type of clothes do you like?
I mostly like older styles, such as those during the 60s. I also like newer styles, like some kinds of punk clothes. I like skirts and dresses best. Loose types of clothing are most comfortable. I like to have nice, neat, stylish clothing too.
2. How do people choose what style of clothing to buy?
Many people buy clothing because it's a new style or it's a color that they like. Often people will buy something because it looks like what a favorite movie star or singer wears. Other people buy clothes that suit them or that they will wear most often. Other people just buy clothes because they are functional.
3. Do you think the brand of clothing is important?
Personally, I don't really care about the brand of clothing, as long as what I buy is good quality. Famous brands are usually too expensive for me, so I will rarely buy them. Often I can find inexpensive brands that are just as good a quality and very nice. Of course, here in China, you can get brand-name clothes at a very cheap price.
4. Why do some people buy brand-name clothes?
Many people buy brand-name clothing because they like the style. However, some people simply want their clothes to last a long time, so they buy a certain brand of clothing that is known for its good quality. Other people buy brand-name clothing because they feel it makes them look more stylish and hip. Some people just like to have that name on their clothing. I think it might make them feel important.
5. Compare the materials and fashions of today's clothing with those of the past.
In my opinion, older fashions changed more slowly and gradually from one to another. They faded into each other. Fashions of today changed drastically in a very short period of time. Often, certain clothes will only be in style for 1 year or so before another, very different style is in. Of course, there are more choices to choose now.
6. Do men and women have the same shopping habits when they buy clothes?
No, they have very different shopping habits. Often men will shop less and only because they need new clothes. They often do not buy much and they will spend less money on what they buy. Actually, I think that they dread shopping and probably would rather go to the dentist. Women buy clothes more often and usually pay more for their clothing. Often they will buy new clothes because they want to be in style. I think women also don't mind spending money as long as it's their boyfriends or husbands.
7. Sometimes factory workers and very often school students have to wear uniforms. What do you think of this?
I think it helps reduce competition in the work or school area. When the workers or students don't feel that they have to keep up with someone else's clothes or style, they are able to concentrate on work or study. The bad side to it is that if the uniform is uncomfortable or does not look very smart or stylish, it makes work or school unpleasant for some people. Also, it can make people feel that they have no individuality and they are just like everyone else.
Fashion. 8. How much do overseas fashion trends influence China?
Overseas fashion trends, especially the Korean styles, greatly affect the styles in China. For young people, dressing like the young people do overseas is very important. Often a style will come into China a bit later than it does to the rest of the Western world, but when it catches on in China, it spreads very quickly. When you travel to cities such as Shanghai or Dalian, you can really see the influence of foreign fashion here in China.
9. Do you think it is good that people in China follow foreign fashion trends?
I think many Chinese feel better about themselves if they dress more fashionably. Especially for young people, the way they dress is like their status, though dress is very important in all levels of society. With TV and fashion models and more money here in China, it is a lot easier to follow these trends. Topic 19. Wild animals. Cue card. Describe a wild animal in China. You should say what the animal is, what it looks like, where it lives, and explain how you feel about this animal.
I'll describe an endangered animal in northeastern China. It's called the Manchurian or Siberian tiger. Manchurian tigers are very impressive animals. Like all tigers, they have orange and black stripes and a white underside and powerful claws and teeth. The largest are nearly 1.5 meters tall and can weigh between 300 and 400 kilos of muscle. They're the largest of the cat family and the most effective and dangerous hunters. They're found all over Siberia and in a few places in northeastern China. They usually hunt and live alone and only meet other tigers during the mating season. I think there are less than 50 of them in the wild in China. There are more kept in captivity in zoos or special parks. There is one wildlife park in Harbin that is famous for its many Manchurian tigers. Most Chinese admire the tiger as a symbol of strength and fierceness. Tigers have had a place in Chinese culture for thousands of years. They are found in Chinese literature, new and old, and are the subject of many famous paintings. But I don't think many Chinese know that this special breed of tigers is all but wiped out in the wild. I hope more efforts will be made in the future to protect the tiger's environment. Without the forests they live and hunt in, Manchurian tigers can only exist in captivity.
Part 3. Pets. 1. Do many people in China like to have a pet?
I think the number of Chinese who like pets is less than half the total population. Many Chinese are afraid of common pets. I think it's very funny, but some are really scared of animals, even very tiny and harmless ones. This may be because of something in their childhood. I don't know. There are many people in China who like pets, but not the majority for sure.
2. What kinds of pets are most popular in China?
Dogs and cats are by far the most common. I think the single most common pet is either the Pekingese dog or the pug dog. I think they are both quite ugly, but sometimes they're so ugly they're cute. A lot of people also keep guard dogs to protect their property.
3. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of having a pet?
A pet can be a good friend, sometimes the best friend. Pets are also great playmates for children. I think it's very good for kids to have a pet when growing up. The disadvantages are that pets are expensive to feed and care for and require a lot of time, depending on the kind of pet.
4. Do you think there should be laws to protect the welfare of pets and farm animals?
I don't really know. I guess there should be laws, but we really shouldn't need them. People should be responsible enough to treat pets and farm animals well. But since many people are too selfish to care, we must have some laws. But the laws shouldn't become so important that they nearly equal laws protecting the welfare of human beings.
Protection of wild animals. 5. Are there any wild animals in China that are not found in any other country?
Yes, the giant panda and the Tibetan antelope. There are probably also some birds and other animals that are only found here, but I don't know anything about them. It's sad, but the animals that are found only in China are the ones that are the most endangered. I think that's the same for other countries, though.
6. How do Chinese people feel about the protection of wild animals?
Many Chinese are only now beginning to learn about the importance of protecting wild animals as well as the environment they live in. The new generations are being taught to respect wild animals, but people never even see them except on TV, so they only have a vague idea of the need to protect them. I admire the many brave people who have made sacrifices to protect wild animals, like the Ke Mountain Patrol. There was a recent movie made about them.
7. What do you think are some of the benefits to humans of protecting wild animals?
I'm not sure what benefits there are, but I know that everything in nature is there for a reason. If one species dies out, it can upset the balance of nature and do a lot of damage in the long run. Wild animals don't always directly affect people, but often they fill a special role in the balance that we are also part of, and affect other species or plants that we are directly dependent on. So we should protect them, because we may be protecting ourselves without knowing it.
8. What is the purpose of having zoos?
Zoos are really a compromise, I think. They are a way for people who live in the city, especially children, to see wild animals. But I think that unless the zoos are the best quality, they shouldn't be operated, as it's cruel to keep wild animals in small cages or dirty surroundings. High-standard zoos can be good, as they educate the general public about the world around them, but I still think it would be better if people could learn about animals straight from nature, not seeing them in zoos.
9. How do you think zoos in China could be improved?
Many zoos in China are poorly equipped due to a lack of funding. Zoos are not so popular or common. I think that they could be improved by more cooperation with other zoos in the West that are well operated and have good techniques and facilities we can learn from. Topic 20. Electrical appliances. Cue card. Describe a useful electrical appliance, e.g. a mobile phone or computer, that you use at home or at work. You should say what it is, where it is, how you use it, and explain why this item is important to you.
The most useful piece of equipment is my computer. I use it for both my work and for recreation. It is a laptop, so I can take it with me wherever I go. I usually keep it on the dresser at the end of my bed, though when I use it, I'm usually on my bed or in my armchair. I use it for my research and to read assignments that I have been given. I also use it for my work and writing. It is important to me because I have all of my most important information on it. If I didn't have it, my life would be so much more difficult, because I would have many problems finding all the different things I need to do my work. I also use it to listen to music, so I would have a hard time listening to music if I didn't have it. Often my mother will ask me to type something up for her, and I like to use my laptop for that, because I'm accustomed to using the keyboard on it. Then I can type faster, because I don't have to get used to a new keyboard, and I make less mistakes.
Part 3. Electrical appliances. 1. Have computers, the items you chose to talk about, changed much over the years?
Yes, computers have changed so much since they first came out. The first computer took up a whole huge room. Today, computers are so small you can put them easily into a shoulder bag. Some are even small enough to fit into your pocket.
2. What kinds of electrical appliances are used most?
I use computers every day, and they are used in almost every area of my life. I also use printers often to print out the information that I have put together on my computer and give it to someone else. In my kitchen, there are also some electrical appliances that I use every day, like toasters, microwaves, and refrigerators. A coffee maker is an appliance not used much here in China, but probably is used more in the US and Europe.
3. Do you think we can live without electrical appliances?
I think it is possible for people to live without electrical appliances. However, people are so used to having them and living with them that I think it would be very difficult, especially if the change is very sudden. I think that it's not good for people to be so dependent on machines to do things for them. I think that people should learn how to live and do things without machines and appliances, so that if there is ever a time when they don't have them, it will be easier to adjust.
4. Do you think science and technology will one day completely eliminate traditional skills and equipment?
I think that it's very possible, but I don't think that this is good. Right now it's very hard to keep up with technology, so what would it be like if it was all replaced? It's almost hard to fathom. Well, you know, if we ever run out of oil, it seems to me that a lot of the technology would change.
5. How do you think electrical appliances will develop in the future?
I think we will have electrical appliances that will do many of the jobs and duties that require less thinking. Jobs like cooking, cleaning, and repairing may soon be taken over by machines and very intelligent appliances. We may soon have appliances that can have dinner on the table by the time a mother and father have come home from work and the child has come home from school. We may have appliances that will clean the house and make the beds, fix the sink, and paint the walls.
Office equipment. 6. What are some of the different forms of electronic communication that people use in offices today?
The most common form of communication in the office is email. Even between people next to or near each other, it is becoming more common to just type out an email or memo. Another very common form of communication is the phone. No matter where someone is, they will almost always have an office phone or a cell phone.
7. What are the effects of using such electronic forms of communication?
One of the main effects of using electronic communication is that the communications become less personal. There is a feeling of just communicating with machines and not talking to a human. Of course, it is much more convenient to be able to send an email to someone rather than going to where they are to ask them or tell them something. It is also much quicker to call someone than to find them and talk to them personally.
Inventions. 8. Do you think people rely too much on machines nowadays?
I think that many people rely too greatly on machines. They seem to forget that there are people around them. It is easy to become completely absorbed in computers or phones or PDAs or MP3 players. People will more often turn to their machines for entertainment rather than spending time with others or getting exercise.
9. What are the advantages that we get from using modern home and office equipment?
There are some advantages to using modern home and office equipment. One of the main ones is that more things get done, and often we can complete projects and assignments very quickly. We are also able to do things that we wouldn't have been able to do before, like working at home. Also, because we are able to finish things quickly, we have more time for other activities that we wish to do.
10. What do you think is the most useful thing that man has ever discovered?
I think that the most important discovery was electricity. Without electricity, we would not have any of the modern equipment that we have today. We would be unable to have phones, computers, lights, TVs, refrigerators, or music players. Electricity runs almost everything in our houses and work areas,